Hey everybody, it's time for the start of a new Green Lantern series. This time it's a John Stewart book that continues off of the backup stories in the first 3 issues of the current Hal Jordan Green Lantern book being written by Jeremy Adams. If you haven't read those backups, don't worry too much about it, because the issue we're going to talk about today is pretty new reader friendly. And as always, if you'd like to hear additional perspectives on this and every new issue of Green Lantern as it comes out, I joined Chad and Mark on the Lantern Cast for a roundtable discussion of every new release. So check that show out at lanterncast.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Now let's get right into it. Green Lantern War Journal number 1 is written by Philip Kennedy Johnson, with art by Montos, colors by Adriano Lucas, and letters by Dave Sharp. The title of this issue is Eyes on the Sky. John Stewart is trying to settle into a normal life on Earth, but he's having a hard time adjusting. When he sits in traffic staring at a dashboard that says his speed is 0 and his tank is near empty, all John can think about is outracing alien starfighters with a white hot ring on his finger. When he works up a sweat taking care of his mom's backyard, all he can think about is how effortlessly he used to construct massive structures like dams in the blink of an eye. It would be so simple to just use his powers and make his life easier, but that would defeat the entire point. John is trying to leave that life behind, and he needs to make something of himself without the powers, otherwise being a lantern will always be what defines him. A bittersweet part of all of this is John's mother. He's trying his best to help her by doing things around the house and just generally being there for her, but she's getting old, and her mind is starting to slip. She keeps repeating the same stories as though it was the first time. And worst of all, she keeps waiting for her daughter to come home. She's forgotten that John's sister died in an accident years ago. John tries to talk to her about it, but then in a moment that says to me that they've probably had this same terrible conversation several times already, John decides to humor her this once. He manifests a full-color construct of his sister, and lets his mother have a moment with her daughter, even if it isn't real. John puts on a happy face and plays along. The hardest part about life on Earth is playing your part as you watch someone you love slowly slip away. But all of that has to wait, because John can sense the arrival of an unexpected visitor, a Green Lantern who he's never seen before. He introduces himself as Lantern Varon, of the reorganized Green Lantern Corps of the United Planets. He immediately places John under arrest, binds him in construct chains, and demands that John turn over his ring. This encounter actually tells us a lot about the state of the Green Lantern Corps. We know that the governing body that is the United Planets has taken charge of the Corps, and that they've made changes to how the Lanterns operate. But they're also working off of incomplete information. They don't know that John no longer needs a Green Lantern ring since he's now an ascended being, a fact that Lantern Varon is about to learn firsthand. John breaks his chains like they're nothing, and then punches Varon exactly twice before he immediately concedes defeat. And at this point, I had the same reaction as John. What kind of Green Lantern gives up after only taking 2 hits, even from a more powerful opponent? Varon is someone who never would have or could have made the cut under the system that the Guardians had in place. If I can make a Star Wars comparison here, Lantern Varon reminds me a lot of a Sith Inquisitor. He's got the look and the weapon, but he's ultimately just a bully in cosplay who crumbles the instant a real challenge arises. The fact that someone like him was given a ring makes me very concerned about the state of the Green Lantern Corps overall, now that they're under new management. But that's not the only trouble coming from outer space. The International Space Station is rocked by an explosion of purple light. Everything is a mess and life support is failing. One of the astronauts, named Jane, was working outside the station and was hit by the purple light directly. Her mind is hazy and she sees something mesmerizing floating in the void of space. A ring that looks to her like a door. A doorway to the stars, a doorway to other worlds. It speaks to her, calls to her, burns away her spacesuit, and transforms her. The next time we see the station, it's in pieces, and its crew have been turned into cosmic zombies called the Radiant Dead. One more explosion of light heralds the arrival of a Green Lantern named Shepard, who followed this blight from his universe all the way to this one. Shepard tries to destroy the Radiant Dead before they can spread to Earth, but it may already be too late. A voice from within Shepard's ring tells him that the only way to stop the threat posed by the Radiant Dead is to destroy their queen, who will surely be looking for this universe's version of Jon Stewart. The voice coming from Shepard's ring has a very human-like personality, and Shepard even says that the voice belongs to someone who died. This could mean a few different things. Maybe it's the ring's AI simulating a person that Shepard was close to, or maybe Shepard actually does have someone's soul stored inside of his ring, which has in fact happened before. When Kilowog's homeworld was destroyed, he kept the souls of his entire population inside of his ring until he was able to restore them later. Literally everything about that is incredibly creepy and unsettling, and you know what? It would be a great fit for the tone of this book, so hopefully that's what's going on. If that's what it is, then right now I'm thinking that the voice in Shepard's ring belongs to the soul of the other universe's Guy Gardner, since he died right next to Shepard in the backups, and Guy is literally the only human being we've seen Shepard interact with who isn't a version of Jon. It's also worth remembering that since Shepard is from another universe, there may be things about his ring that we don't know. Maybe it works exactly the same as the rings we're used to, or maybe there are important differences that we can't account for yet. Speaking of rings, I'm very surprised and intrigued by the ring that took Jane. Based on the backup stories that led into this series, we know that this ring belongs to the Revenant Queen, but this isn't the entrance I expected. Shepard arrived in this universe fully formed in a burst of light, but despite us seeing the Revenant Queen exit her own universe through a portal, nothing arrived in this universe but her ring, which seems to be turning a host body into the Revenant Queen. Does that mean she doesn't have a body of her own? Is the real threat here a parasitic ring? Who did that ring originally belong to, and is it overwriting its host's mind with that of its original owner? I have my own theory, which you can hear all about if you watch my previous video on Green Lantern number 3, but this series just started and it already gave us a pretty big piece of new information, so for now we're going to have to wait and see how many pieces this puzzle even has. Overall, this is a pretty good first issue. Reading those 3 backup stories in the other book definitely enhances the experience, but this issue by itself works perfectly fine as a starting point. And once Shepard finds Jon, he'll have to explain to Jon what's going on, which will most likely cover any context you might be missing if you didn't read those backups. This issue has a very strong emotional core that it presents in a heart-wrenching way, while also setting up a very creepy and mysterious cosmic threat. In many ways, this issue is a fresh start for Jon, but instead of throwing out past continuity, it's being introduced in ways that make sense for someone who's trying to leave behind a life that won't let him go. I'm very impressed with this whole creative team, and I can't wait to see what they have in store for us next time. So that's Green Lantern War Journal number 1. Now it's your turn to tell me what you think in the comment section of this video. Can Jon actually live a happy life if he leaves the core behind? Will the crisis that's about to appear on his doorstep be exactly what he needs to feel like himself again? Who is the voice in Shepard's ring? Tell me all about it, and be sure to subscribe to the channel and ring the bell if you don't want to miss my video on issue number 2 when it comes out. Until then, let me just say thank you for taking the time to watch. My name is Dan. We'll talk again soon.